before turning Kitchen 55 into a restaurant, we always questioned that, okay, they're difficult to commercialize and nobody's really done it before. Even in Iran, it's rare to find a restaurant that would serve these dishes.
Hey everybody, this is Dani Valent and you are listening to Dirty Linen. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate your trust in listening to me and my food chats with people that I think are interesting and have great stories from any part of the food world. I guess we're all in the food world because we are all eaters, we are all implicated in it through the choices that we make, and yeah, aren't we lucky? One of the things that I relish about my work is that it brings me into contact with people from all kinds of different cultures with all kinds of different stories. Yeah, there is always a backstory. I feel like food is a way of discussing all kinds of topics. You can put any kind of lens on food and have an interesting discussion. I'm talking about things like science, technology, immigration, religion, culture, family history, health. There's really no topic that food doesn't intersect with. And yeah, that's why it's really rich. It also means that we can have some difficult and intense conversations around food. We all gather around tables, around plates, bowls, around ingredients. So it is a way that we can all connect and find out what makes us the same as well as different. This is not even necessarily an introduction to this conversation. It could be an introduction to every conversation, but I reckon it's going to work for my discussion with Khash Kohan, who is part of Kitchen 55, a Persian restaurant in Melbourne. Honestly, one of the most enveloping, startling and different dining experiences that I've had in Melbourne over the past couple of years. Khash, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
It's great to connect with you again, Khash. Tell me about Kitchen 55.
Where do you want me to start? From the beginning, or what's going on right now?
Tell me what happens when someone walks into the dining room. Like, what kind of experience are they walking into?
I think our approach is a bit different compared to any other restaurant. I don't know. It's that Persian hospitality that everybody's heard about, but we're it's a lot more friendlier, for example. But that's the wrong word probably to use again. The thing is that Kitchen 55 was not supposed to be a restaurant, and it's an accidental restaurant. So we just went by with what happened, and I don't know how to explain. You come in, and either I'm there or my brother or a couple of our team members. You're greeted. You can usually choose where you'd like to sit, and from then on, basically, you've got a few options, and most of the times we end up feeding you, and we go from there. And the reason that we've got a few different options is because the cuisine that we're serving, these are very traditional Persian dishes, quite difficult to commercialize. And before turning Kitchen 55 into a restaurant, we always questioned that, okay, they're difficult to commercialize and nobody's really done it before. Even in Iran, it's rare to find a restaurant that would serve these dishes. And when it turned into a restaurant, we realized that, okay, that is the reason why nobody serves these dishes in a restaurant setting, because it's very, very difficult. But yeah, we basically got 2 to 3 mains per day. The menu changes every day for 3 weeks, and still we try to cater for different dietary requirements or allergies. So yeah, you've got a few options when it comes to the entrees, to the sides, and again, fewer options when it comes to the mains. And everybody shares. It usually, rather than, and that's why I said, our approach is different, because even to us, it doesn't feel like we're in a restaurant. It feels like you've come to our home and we're here to make sure that you've got a good time and you leave happy. And that's basically all we care about. That's our culture, yeah. So I don't know if I made it justice or not, but yeah.
Well, I think you have definitely done it justice, but you've also, in the difficulty there is in explaining it, you've sort of landed on the reason it's so special as well, that Kitchen 55 isn't a normal restaurant. You are doing dishes that are usually only served in the home. They're not restaurant dishes, not here, not in Iran. They are dishes that you would, your mother would make, or your aunt would make, dishes that people stand over the stove and keep an eye on for hours and hours. As you say, like, it's not necessarily the most practical dishes to do in a restaurant setting. And, it's like your family has put their whole heart and many, many hours into creating this experience. A lot of people listening may not know about the different regions, the regionality of Persian food. But can you talk about the north, talk about Rasht and what a special place it is?
Yes. So just a quick introduction into different regions. Well, basically, you might find the same dish in south of Iran, center of Iran, north of Iran. And because of the vegetation and the fruits and the taste of fruits, because, for example, south of Iran, you still get pomegranates, but they're quite sweet. And when you go towards the north, they turn sour. So the same dish that you might have in south of Iran might be sweeter compared to the same dish again in north of Iran that's going to be sour. But north of Iran, our family, mom, dad, generationally, we're from the north. Our great grandparents, they moved to Tehran, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago, and then afterwards, mom and dad, they were born in Tehran, raised in Tehran, and same with me and my brother, blah, blah, blah. But north of Iran is kind of separated from the rest of Iran by the mountains. And even if you want to go there, you have to go through the mountains. Very beautiful scenery. So they've got their own cuisine, due to the taste of fruits and the certain vegetables that only grow there. And every Saturday, our menu is completely from that region. These are recipes that, I remember, for example, the Persian New Year's holidays, we would always go to Rasht, and we had mom's aunts that would make these dishes, or even my grandma in Tehran, every once in a while that, we would go to her house and she would make these dishes. It's a very special place. North of Iran, again, Rasht, very rainy. It's called the City of Rain, and green, very, friendly people. But that's, again, the same thing, happens in across Iran. Wherever you go, people are friendly, and I just can talk about one memory that it proves how strange and weird it might be. I remember when I was very young, before Google Maps and all that, we had gone to Rasht, and we arrived very late and we were lost, and few times we stopped by to ask for the address, and every time, people would just be like, "It's too late. Just come to our house, stop for dinner, and then for some tea or something, and then we'll just drive you to your destination." So, and that happens basically everywhere in Iran. So yeah, that's I don't know. Yeah,
that incredible hospitality. that you speak of, I would love to experience it in Iran one day, but I certainly feel it at Kitchen 55. It's when I went there, I could so feel your care, like how much you cared if me and my family were enjoying it or experiencing it in the way that you wanted to deliver it. It was really moving. I'm actually starting to cry thinking about it because it was such genuine, heartfelt hospitality. So beautiful. Khash, tell me about some of the dishes. Like, what do you remember your grandmother making, for example?
Well, let me put it this way. The same dish, well, both of my grandmothers, they're both from Iran, from Rasht, north of Iran. And they both might make the same dish. They kind of look the same, but they taste completely different. But some of the so that's something that again you see in different families, different recipes. You never eat the same thing. That tastes exactly the same. But what would I remember my grandma would make? One of the dishes would be barad very different, very difficult to pronounce. Very challenging dish to make, especially in Australia, because of so barley is basically white beans, and these beans, even in Iran, they only grow in north of Iran. So I remember whenever again we would go to the north, or if somebody would come to Tehran from the north, they would always bring you some, or they would always give you some of those white beans. And yeah, that was something that my grandma would make all the time. So it's basically white beans, butter, dill, and egg. And again, very simple, but if you don't do the right thing, the beans would turn mushy or they come out quite hard. And so I know that when Mom started, working on this recipe in Australia, it took her months to be able to get the beans to have the same consistency with what we would get in Iran, basically, because again, different beans. But yeah, that was something that she would always make. A bit of babishka, you've tried. It's basically beef, tomato, onion cooked in pomegranate sauce. And she would always tell me that, okay, if you're having babishka is my favorite. You have to have a bit of barad ratov next to it, mix it, they complement each other. And weirdly, they do. Very different. And that's what we do at the restaurant. We just, go to check in with the tables and tell them that just mix them together. It looks weird, it sounds weird, but it works. And again, strangely, it works.
Boy, does it work. So yeah, I remember the bagali gatosh. Apologies for my pronunciation. You look at it and you just think you're looking at white beans and herbs and there's an egg there, but it looks quite unassuming. It looks hearty, looks like it's probably good for you, but it is that combination. Maybe it's the act of mixing the egg through as well, like there's some kind of involvement in the dish. And I just thought there's just a depth to it that was so overwhelming. Maybe it's the touch of the cook. I don't know. It's that real sense of connection. It was very direct.
Can I say something? It's something that Mom told me, I think maybe a year ago or so. Of course, she's the one behind the whole thing, and she was talking about what days she enjoys the best, and what Kitchen 55 means to her, and she said that every Saturday morning when she goes to the shop very early, prepping everything, getting everything ready for lunch, and she says that those first 2-3 hours before us showing up to the restaurant, that she's on her own, she's walking with basically with her dad who's gone, who's gone for many years, with her mom, her grandmother, grandfather, with her with her aunt, all the ones who who are not with us anymore. And because when she was working on these recipes here in Australia, she would tell me that, oh, okay, I was thinking that, okay, how would Dad do it? And I remember that when I was 9, that would always say that, okay, you need to add the salt here, or Mom would say that, okay, you need to, I don't know, add the butter at this point. And she says that I get 2-3 hours every Saturday morning to spend with my family, and it's just something. I don't even know how to explain, but and sometimes I call Mom, yeah, you're a bit crazy. That's okay, in a good way. And but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that bit that adds to these dishes. I'm not sure.
Tell me about the importance of rice in Persian cuisine.
Well, it's everywhere. It's rice. You can't really, I can't think of a dish that you can have when it comes to the mains without rice or bread. And again, same with rice. It grows different parts of Iran, and as you go from region to region, tastes are different, and the smell. But yeah, you should have a bit of rice and a bit of a stew, and then yeah, you basically mix them. And again, I don't know what happens if you have the stew on its own. It's still delicious, but when you add it to the rice, it just as if it completes it. Yeah.
And tell me what a tadik is.
Tadik. Tadik is, I think, everybody's favorite. So tadik is when you cook the rice in a certain way and the bottom of the pot turns crunchy and golden. And yeah, if you don't do it right, it's not going to be crunchy enough. And if you, or, you can burn it. And that happens every once in a while at the restaurant, because you need to take it off the heat at the right time. And yeah, if you take your time, if you forget about it for even 30 seconds, then you can smell the burnt rice, and you need to begin again. So especially on Saturdays, because our rice is served with the golden crust, with the tadik, we've got I don't know, 6 to 9 pots going on at the same time, and all of them are being timed. And yeah, you've got Mom, shaking the pots to make sure that it's separating from the pot, and she knows that it's ready, and she flips it like a cake. And I go for tadik over rice, and I mean that's rice, but yeah, tadik over rice any day. Yeah.
It's like the crispy corner of the lasagna. It's like the best bit.
Yes, best bit. Yeah, that's exactly the best bit. Yeah.
I think it's one thing to, make a dish where, I don't know, whether it's crispy skin on a fish, or, whether the top of a cake is set, or you can put a skewer in. But I think the mystery of the tadik, like it's hidden at the bottom of the pot, you can't see it until you flip it out. I think there's a special kind of culinary high wire act that's going on there.
That's it. Yeah, again, it's basically the same thing, but it tastes different, and it definitely tastes better than the rest of the rice. I just don't get it.
Khash, let's switch gears, because I want to talk a bit about what's happening in Iran at the moment. If anyone who's been following the news or chatting to any Iranian friends or colleagues that they might have, they know that times are extremely tough. Tell us from your perspective what's going on there.
Yeah, well, at this point, it's almost become a ritual for us Iranians. I mean, ritual might be the wrong word, but bear with me, it makes sense. It's almost every other year or every year that we go through the same thing, and we become hopeful that, okay, this is it. This is the time that things are going to change, and something would happen, but it kind of dies down. What am I talking about? What are we talking about for someone who might not know about what's going on? Well, you know, Iran is basically a dictatorship. It's been for the past 47 years, and for the past 47 years, people have been trying to free the country in a way, free themselves. And every year, it gets worse and worse and worse. The country's under sanctions. The people are, I can say it's, and I explain why I can say it so easily. They're very, very poor. Country being one of the richest countries in the world. We've got so many resources, from natural gas to oil to gold, and people are can't even afford to buy groceries, and yet it just the freedom doesn't exist. Democracy, again, it doesn't exist, and we've got this regime. I was going to call it the government, but not really. This regime who's taken the people and the country as hostages, and they're just exploiting its resources. What happened a few weeks ago? So towards the end of December, early January. I just say from my perspective, if it's okay. Again, it's not about me, but me being here in Australia for so many years, that's the only way that I might be able to again make it relatable. So. I remember early January, I saw that, and he was saying that, have you heard about Iran? Have you heard about what's going on? I was like, what's going on? And he said, okay, this is the case. The shop owners are on strike. The currency has collapsed. I think it's going to happen. And I said, Dad, come on. You said the same thing 6 months ago. Last year, we just watch it, with hope, and they just kill all these people, and we destroy ourselves, and then a month later, 2 months later, nothing changes. And he said it's different. I was like, okay. Maybe the next day, I was at a gathering, with one of my oldest friends. I've known him, since high school in Iran, and he said that, have you looked at it? Have you seen what's going on? I was like, that was saying the same thing. Come on, I can't. I just cannot do this to myself. And he said, no, it's different this time. I was like, that's exactly what everybody's been saying. He said, tonight when you go home, just look into it. It's like, okay. And I went home and I looked into it. And the first video that I saw was this guy filming about his grocery shopping. And he was holding a bag, like a freezer bag of canola oil. So when I say the currency collapsed in a way that people cannot afford. And it's not, the, poor population of Iran. It's just basically 90%, 95% of the population. People cannot afford to buy canola oil. It became so expensive that they were selling it by grams. So that guy had bought, I think, 30 grams of canola oil in a plastic bag to go home and make himself, I don't know, dinner, whatever. So that was the beginning of it. And people started protesting, small protests here and here. But within a week, it turned into a full-blown revolution. And this time, again, exactly the same thing that everybody around me was saying, that this time it's different, but it really, really is different. And I don't know, we're, every time, again, we would see that we could see the hope. But I think this time around, we're just holding on to it. We can feel it, and we're just waiting at this point to see what happens. Especially for us outside of Iran, we're just trying our best. We're just trying our best to, I don't know, to do something. You know, it might sound weird. I'm sitting here in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm saying this. I want to do something for the country, but the most I can do is to talk about it or post about it on Instagram again because you don't hear about it. I don't know where I'm going with all this. I'll make sense of it. Just give me 1 second. So we just realized as Iranians that we're alone, and it's in a way that the news, they didn't talk about it. Human rights activists, they didn't talk about it. All the people that talk about, again, human rights and this and that didn't talk about it. And as if nobody was hearing or wanted to hear or wanted to see what was taking place in the country. So it's us outside of the country who had to keep the fire going after what happened inside. And what happened inside was that thousands of people got killed, thousands of people got stolen by the government, detained, executed behind closed doors, and we've got thousands of people missing, thousands injured, and yeah, I don't know. I think I'm all over the place. Sorry about that.
It's where do you start? Like, it's so distressing. It strikes me so powerfully that you start by talking about hope and that you're holding on to hope in amongst all the trauma. And also just this sense of being very connected but very far away. Can you talk to me what it's like? Talk to me about what it's like. Like, what is it like for you to be here, but to be so connected to there? Like, where does it touch you? How does it touch you?
If you don't mind me, I think it would be a lot better to understand if I give you a backstory about, again, what an Iranian experiences in Iran growing up, and because it's all connected weirdly. I've always said that if you're inside of Iran or outside of Iran, you're a prisoner of the regime, and you can't really do much about it. I remember my first, not the first memory, but one of the first memories was that, we were driving home from my grandma's house to our house, and we got stuck in traffic, and it was one of these protests. I don't know. It was probably it was definitely in the 90s. I was very young, and we had all these, Basij or IRGC members with batons and baseball bats, walking through the traffic, chanting in Arabic and smashing cars, attacking people. And they were walking, I think, towards a university in Tehran to oppress the students. So when that is one of your first memories, where everything else is gonna go. I remember I grew up, with mom telling me, my bedtime stories were about, mom is a big history buff, and she would always tell me about, the different empires that ruled over Iran, the Persian empires, and, different kings, and, what they did. And I went into school, waiting to now study history, and because I thought that I knew a lot, and our history started with a few pages about the Persian Empire, maybe 1,000 years worth of history, just in 10 pages, and then it moved onto the Islam and the takeover of the country, and Iranian people, Persian people finally being liberated, but coming out of this savagery that again our history book in school depicted our ancestors and saved by Islam. And I remember I questioned it at school. I might have been second grade, and that night it was in winter, snowing. Maybe 5:30 p.m. already. Dark outside. Me and mom were walking back home, and I asked her. I told her that's what I learned in history today, and that I questioned it, and our teacher said that I was wrong. But mom, I don't think if I'm wrong. If that is our history, then how can we be how did the Arabs or the Muslims saved us by pillaging through Iran? And she said, okay, from now on we're gonna have two different conversations. The conversations that we have at home, we call them home talks, and the conversations that we have outside, we call them outside talks. And you cannot talk about home talks outside. And I said, why? And she said, because me, your dad, we can get into serious troubles. And that was again another bit of that click. That's okay. It's serious. Throughout the years, that rebellious side of me, got me into a lot of troubles in school. The brainwashing machine of the regime. That's what I've been calling it for many years. And I watched my friends, my classmates, just turn into those extremists that the regime once needed. I remember Khomeini, the one who hijacked the revolution in '79. One of the things that he said was that we don't need patriots, we don't need Iranians, we need Muslims, and we have to start from schools. That's what they did. Every morning we had to line up in school and do some military salutes and chant death to Israel and death to America without knowing why. I would question it and they would say, because they're the evil. And I would like, all right, why are they the evil? Because they're our enemy. And why are they the enemy? Because they're the evil. So that was all I would get. And, I shouldn't take it further, because then my parents would get called to school, and they would be like, all right, why is your kid, what are you teaching your kid at home that is questioning this? Fast forward, when I was in high school, the green movement happened, and I was 16. It was a few months before I left Iran, and I was there. Mom was there, and I got beaten up, not that bad. Two of my friends, they almost got killed. In fact, one of them is the one that is in Australia, and he was telling me to check the news. And mom, I remember, mom was at a different protest, and it was the day that for the first time in the history of the regime, they killed people, they fired at people in front of everyone. They would usually arrest you and then execute you behind closed doors, but it was the first time that they used AK-47s and handguns and killed hundreds of people. And I remember mom coming back home, and she didn't talk to anyone for 2 weeks. She wore long sleeve tops and didn't show any skin for a few weeks, because she was bruised, and slowly she started to talk to us. And then what were the first words that she used, or she said, they were, we need to get out of the country, because we're not going to survive. We can't sit at home, and if we get out there, we're gonna get killed. And to this day, I owe my life to her, because I know that I always say it comes across as a joke, but I really mean it, that I would, get executed at least 100 times a year if I was in Iran. And that thing happened over and over again through the past 2009, 2026, 17 years. And every year it got worse. Internet came around, social media, so the brainwashing, lost its powers on the new generation. And then we had 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds taking it to the streets and getting killed in the worst ways possible. But we believe that the reason that none of those protests turned into a revolution was a divide between people. This time around, we've got a leader, and it took us 47 years because it's taken this leader, the exiled crown prince, 47 years to be able to get everyone to understand that, okay, we can trust him. And he himself, Reza Pahlavi, he's in America, he's been in America, and he's been calling himself the transitional leader to help us, the country, through the first 100 years of post-revolution, let's say, post-regime change. And, until we can have a proper election, a real election. So, and the way it worked, again, he's been a lot louder. He's been, recognized by more and more people within the past, let's say, 5 to 10 years. He's got a massive team behind him. He's designed a transitional path that, there is a website both in English, in Farsi, that's okay, how are we going to take care of the country that it's not going to turn into, somewhere like Iraq or Afghanistan? How are we going to, keep everybody safe? And people finally started trusting him. And he's been challenged, let's say, in the past 5 years, that, okay, you call on people, you ask them to come in the streets in Iran, outside of Iran, and let's see if you can get 10 people, to come out and chant your name. And he was, sorry, just the last sentence, and he was the one that actually turned the protest into the revolution. He asked people to chant for 2 days, and people chanted in Iran. And then he asked them to get in the streets, and they finally left the house. We had 2-year-olds and we had 80, 90-year-olds. We had millions of people across Iran who took it to the streets. And that was the time that the regime, 8th of January, to cut off the internet, even phones in Iran, in some areas, the electricity, and slaughtered people in absolute darkness, in complete darkness. And we're talking about minimum 36,000 people. Some reports are saying that it's 45,000. Some are saying that it's closer to 100,000. And that happened in 2 evenings, maybe within 6 hours. And it's still going.
Thank you for sharing that. It's obviously harrowing. And yeah, a lot for you to carry, as well as, let alone to talk about. So I'm really grateful to you for that. There's so much history, and there's so much that is happening and could happen. And here we are on a little food podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I thank you for, sorry, I cut you off, but thank you for, again, a food podcast, and where I'm talking about these things. Apologies, and at the same time, thank you for the opportunity.
No, but I think, what I was trying to get to at the start of this episode was that, food can lead us to all kinds of conversations, and that people who are serving food, especially immigrants or refugees or people who've come from places that are in deep strife, they're here for a reason, and they're carrying a lot quite often. And I think the fact that you can walk into a room, and through a very simple transaction that you exchange money for food, you can be fed. But I think it's really worth remembering what people may be carrying and all the energy that it might take to deliver that experience. So I think it's it's always worth thinking about that. We're just humans here on this earth together, and how can we stand next to each other and look at the landscape and think about what we're all dealing with. How can we help one another bear these burdens a little more easily, or at least with a sense of empathy and common humanity. So that's just what I wanted to do with this conversation, Khash. So maybe we just leave it there, because we could talk forever. And I want you to have, you and your people and me as another person in the world, I want there to be peace and freedom and dignity for all people in all places. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to learn new ways that we can stand together.
Thank you. And, thank you for I don't know, giving me this opportunity, this platform, to talk about it. And, just maybe it's the best way to wrap up this topic is to say that what Iranians are fighting, again, outside of Iran, is it will help the world. It will contribute to, it would get us closer to peace. Again, you've got the opportunity to go and look into the regime and, the atrocities that they've gone through the years, and why it's not all about Iran and Iranians, and I think that's all we're trying to say, outside of Iran, that's okay, people just pay attention to what is going on and what's being ignored. But thank you very much.
Khash, leave us with something delicious. Like, next time I see you, what are we going to eat?
Oh, something delicious. Can I talk about the thing that I make at the shop, at the restaurants?
Yes.
Our saffron and rose butter ice cream. It is delicious. And if you would have asked me how ice cream is made maybe 4 years ago, I would have said, I have no idea. Maybe cream and ice and some sugar, and you put it in the freezer and hope for the best. But so we've got this very traditional, again, ancient recipe probably. It's saffron, it's rose water, a bit of pistachio, and it's a slightly stretchy ice cream because of salep. It's that powder that you get from a certain flour, and I wanted us to have that because Persian restaurant should have it. And I was like, all right, I haven't really had one in Australia that would do it justice. I had some vague memories about, having it back in Iran. So I went on a journey of learning how to make ice cream, gained 15 kilos in 6 months because I would just make 2 liters every week. And, even though it wasn't good, you can't throw away ice cream. And finally, I think I perfected it after 6 months to a year, and very popular. It's very hard to keep up with making it and the demand and all that. But that's what I do. Make the ice cream at the restaurant. Yeah.
I love it. Khash, thank you so much. We'll stay in touch, and we'll see you for ice cream and so much more.
Yeah, thank you, Dani. Thank you for the opportunity.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta @Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.